This billionaire saw his black maid comforting his crying autistic son, the only child he has, and it melted his heart. For the first time in his life, he cried. But you never know what's coming because this story is so touching. The scream tore through the mansion like a knife. Everyone froze, but she didn't. What happened next made a billionaire drop to his knees and cry like a child.
Oh, no.
The boy's fist slammed against his own head, over and over. His eyes squeezed shut. His breath ragged, desperate. No one knew what to do. The guards looked at each other. The servants backed away. But Maya didn't hesitate. She dropped her cleaning rag, kicked off her shoes, and ran, barefoot across cold marble. Straight to him. She didn't ask permission, didn't check with anyone. She just knelt down and wrapped her arms around that trembling little body. For 3 long seconds, nothing changed. Then his fist slowed. His breathing steadied. His head rested on her shoulder. The mansion went silent. Not the awkward kind of silence. The sacred kind. And at the top of the stairs stood Preston Hale, billionaire, untouchable, ice cold, watching a black maid do what 12 therapists couldn't. His phone slipped from his hand and cracked on the floor. He didn't even notice. Because for the first time in 3 years, his son, his only son, had stopped screaming. Have you ever seen something so raw it made you question everything? That's what Preston saw. And what came next? It destroyed him in the best way possible. Subscribe now, because you won't believe who this woman really was. Preston Hale wasn't always made of stone. There was a time he laughed so loud it embarrassed his wife at fancy dinners. A time when he dreamed out loud, talked too fast, loved too hard. But grief has a way of turning hearts into vaults. His wife Clara died on a Tuesday. Car crash. On the spot. No goodbyes. Theo was only 3 years old. The boy who used to giggle at cartoons stopped laughing. The child who ran into his father's arms stopped running. He just sat there, rocking, silent, trapped inside a world no one else could enter. Preston threw money at the problem like bullets. Top neurologists? Check. Specialists from Switzerland? Flown in. Therapists with waiting lists 2 years long? He paid triple to skip the line. Nothing worked. Every expert had a different label. Every method failed faster than the last. And with each failure, Preston's heart grew colder. He stopped hoping, because hope, he learned, was just another thing money couldn't buy. Then she walked in. Maya. Worn shoes. Quiet eyes. Hands that had seen real work. She wasn't there to save anyone. She was hired to mop floors and stay invisible. But here's what nobody knew yet. She had a superpower that no degree could teach. She noticed things. While everyone else saw a broken boy, she saw patterns. The way Theo's fingers twitched to rhythm. The way his breathing slowed when someone stayed close without talking. The way his eyes softened when that old record player hummed a specific tune. So she started humming it. Not loud, not obvious, just there, while she mopped, while she dusted, while the world ignored her. And Theo? He stopped mid-rock one day, tilted his head, listened. The next day, he moved closer to where she was cleaning. The day after that, he sat by the doorway just to hear her voice. That's how miracles start. So quiet you almost miss them. Have you ever helped someone who didn't even know how to ask? Then you understand what Maya was doing. She wasn't fixing him. She was meeting him where he lived. And Preston? He had no idea yet. But the security cameras were recording everything. What those cameras captured 3 weeks later would make Preston replay the footage until his eyes burned. And what he discovered about Maya 6 months later, it would destroy everything he thought he knew about family, truth, and the woman cleaning his floors. Comment ready if you want the next scene, because this gets darker before it gets beautiful. Week 4. Preston was on a conference call when he heard it through the monitor. A sound the mansion hadn't heard in 3 years. Laughter. Not polite. Not fake. Real laughter. His son's laughter. He muted the call mid-sentence, pulled up the garden camera, and watched. Theo was stacking colored cups while Maya clapped softly. He knocked it down. She laughed. He looked at her, then giggled. That giggle turned into a full belly laugh that shook his tiny shoulders. Preston replayed it 10 times. Each time, something inside him cracked a little more. He started changing his schedule. Meetings that used to run until midnight, cut short. Business trips to Tokyo? Canceled. He'd stand at the window, overlooking the garden, watching this woman do the impossible. She wasn't using fancy therapy techniques. She wasn't following a clinical program. She was just there, steady, patient, present. One afternoon, Theo let her place a weighted blanket over him. Another day, he took a cookie from her hand without flinching. By week 6, he was holding her hand while they walked the garden path. Preston watched it all through glass, like a ghost in his own home. And for the first time since Clara died, he felt something crack open in his chest. Not hope, something scarier. Guilt, because he realized he'd been so busy hiring experts, he forgot to just be near his son. Then everything fell apart. Someone on staff got jealous. Maybe it was the way Preston watched Maya. Maybe it was the raises she didn't ask for, but received anyway. Doesn't matter. What matters is this. They reported her. Anonymous tip to the welfare board. Unlicensed caregiver overstepping boundaries with vulnerable child. Unverified methods. Potential harm. The inspector showed up on a Thursday morning. No warning. No mercy. Preston's lawyers try to block it, but bureaucracy doesn't care about billion-dollar empires. By noon, Maya was suspended, pending investigation. She packed her small bag, tears streaming, and walked out the side door without saying goodbye, because Theo was napping, and she didn't want him to see her cry. That night, Theo woke up screaming. Not the frustrated kind, the terrified kind. He clawed at his own arms, refused food, rocked so hard he bruised his back against the wall. The mansion that had started to feel alive, it died again. Preston tried everything Maya did, played the same record, hummed the same tune, offered the same snacks. Nothing worked, because healing isn't about copying steps. It's about connection, and Theo had lost the one person who understood him. Preston sat on the floor of Theo's room at 3 a.m., watching his son rock in the corner. He pulled out his phone and stared at Maya's employee file. One reference, a small-town agency. No social media, no history. Who was she? And why did it feel like losing her meant losing his son all over again? The next morning, Preston did something billionaires rarely do. He got in his car, alone, and drove 4 hours to that small town. What he found there didn't just shock him. It shattered him. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. The town was the kind you drive through without noticing. One gas station, a diner with cracked vinyl booths, houses that had seen better decades. Preston's Range Rover looked like a spaceship parked outside the employment agency. Inside, an elderly woman sat behind a desk buried in paperwork. She looked up when the door chimed. "Help you." Preston cleared his throat. "I'm looking for information on Maya Cole." The woman's face changed. Not suspicion. Something softer. Sadness. "You're the one she works for now," she said. Not a question. Preston nodded. The woman sighed, removed her glasses, and folded her hands. "Then you should sit down." "Maya only came back to work 2 years ago," the woman began. "Before that, she was a nurse. Good one, too. Worked labor and delivery at County General." Preston's pulse quickened. He didn't know why yet. She had a baby boy. Premature. 28 weeks. Tiny thing, barely 2 pounds. The woman's voice cracked. Hospital told her he didn't make it. Said his lungs gave out in the night. They even showed her paperwork. Preston's hands went cold. She held his blanket for 3 days straight. Wouldn't eat. Wouldn't sleep. Just sat there in that hospital room, rocking an empty bassinet. After the funeral, well, there was no body. They said it was policy for premature deaths. She left town. Disappeared. We didn't hear from her for 4 years. Preston's throat tightened. What changed? The woman leaned forward. She came back last year, said she needed work to survive. Wouldn't talk about the past. Wouldn't talk about the baby. She paused. But I'll tell you something strange. About 6 months before she came back, there was a lawsuit. Quiet one. County General got caught falsifying records. Babies that supposedly died. Some were adopted out through a private network. Preston's heart stopped. The dates, the woman continued, they matched Maya's son. But by the time the case settled, the records were sealed. She couldn't prove anything. Preston's mind was racing now. His late wife Clara had struggled with fertility for years. The adoption, it was private, arranged through a hospital contact, all legal, all clean. Or so he'd thought. What was the baby's birth date? Preston asked, voice barely steady. The woman flipped through a file. March 14th. Why? Preston stood up so fast his chair fell backward. March 14th, Theo's birthday. He stumbled out of that office, got into his car, and sat there shaking. It couldn't be. It was impossible. But the dates lined up. The hospital matched. Even the county matched. He pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. I need every document from Theo's adoption. Everything. Now. Sir, those files are sealed. I don't care. Unseal them. 2 days later, the files arrived. Preston spread them across his desk like a crime scene. Adoption certificate. Hospital transfer form. Birth records. And then he found it. A medical wristband. Scanned and filed with the paperwork. Tiny. Faded. But still readable. Patient ID. MC 031428B. Mother. M. Cole. His vision blurred. MC. Maya Cole. The maid who healed his son had given birth to him. The woman mopping his floors was Theo's real mother. Preston sat in that office for an hour, staring at nothing. Some people would call this fate. Others would call it theft. What do you call it when the system rips a baby from a mother's arms and hands him to a billionaire's wife? Was Clara a victim too? Or was ignorance not an excuse? Drop, innocent, or guilty below, because there's no clean answer here. Preston knew what he had to do next, but it terrified him, because bringing Maya back meant telling her the truth. And the truth? It was going to destroy them both. Subscribe now, because Chapter 5 is the confrontation you've been waiting for, and it's going to hurt. Maya walked through the mansion doors on a Tuesday morning. Investigation cleared. Job restored. But she didn't feel victorious. She felt empty, because 3 weeks away from Theo had gutted her in a way she couldn't explain to anyone, not even herself. She set her bag down in the hallway, and Theo ran. Not walked, not hesitated. He sprinted across that marble floor, arms wide, and crashed in her like she was the only solid thing left in his world. He pressed his face in her dress and held on. The staff watching started clapping, but Preston didn't clap. He stood at the top of the stairs, one hand gripping the railing, the other holding a folded piece of paper. His face looked like a man about to jump off a bridge. An hour later, after Theo was settled with his toys, Preston asked Maya to stay. We need to talk. Her stomach dropped. Those 4 words never mean anything good. They sat in his office, her on the edge of a leather chair, him pacing like a caged animal. Maya, he started, voice tight, I need to ask you something, and I don't even know how. She watched him wary. Sir, he stopped pacing, pulled the paper from his pocket, unfolded it slowly like it might explode, then placed it on the desk between them. A medical wristband, photographed, enlarged. Her eyes landed on it, and the world stopped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Where did you? Her voice broke. Preston's eyes were wet. Is this you? She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, just stare at that tiny wristband with her son's name. Her son's name printed on it. They told me he died, she whispered finally, tears spilling. They said he was too small, that his lungs couldn't take it. Preston's jaw clenched. They lied. She looked up at him, confusion and horror mixing on her face. What are you saying? He swallowed hard. How? My son. Our son. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Maya stood so fast the chair tipped over. No, Maya, no. Her hands were shaking. Her breath came fast and shallow. You're telling me I've been cleaning the floors of my own child's house? That I've been paid to care for the baby they stole from me? Preston didn't defend, didn't argue. He just stood there and let her rage hit him like he deserved. I held his blanket for 3 days, she said, voice cracking. I sat in that hospital room and rocked an empty crib because they told me he was gone. Tears poured down her face now. Do you know what that does to a mother? Do you know what it feels like to bury a child that never got a funeral? Preston's voice was barely a whisper. I can't imagine. No, you can't. She wiped her face with shaking hands. And your wife, did she know? Preston shook his head. Clara was told it was a legal private adoption. The hospital gave her papers. Everything looked legitimate. Legitimate, Maya repeated bitterly. That's a nice word for stolen. Silence filled the room. Then Preston asked the question that would later split the internet in half. What do you want me to do? Maya stared at him. What do I want? Her voice was quiet now. Dangerous. I want the last 5 years back. I want the nights I spent crying myself to sleep. I want the first time he walked, the first time he laughed, the first word he said. She stepped closer. But we both know I can't have that. So what I want doesn't matter, does it? Preston's shoulders sagged. It matters to me. Does it? Or are you just scared I'll take him away? He flinched. Because, yeah, that fear was eating him alive. I'm not going to lie to you, Maya said, voice steadying. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I can forgive this. Any of this. She looked toward the door, where Theo's laughter echoed faintly from down the hall. But I know one thing. She turned back to Preston. That boy needs stability. He needs love. He needs people who won't abandon him every time life gets hard. Her eyes locked onto his. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let me stay. Not as staff. As his mother. Preston nodded immediately. Yes. And you're going to help me figure out how we tell him the truth when he's ready. Okay. And if you ever try to erase me from his life again, her voice turned to steel. I will burn this mansion to the ground with every lawyer in the state. Are we clear? Preston didn't hesitate. Crystal. But what they didn't know yet was this. Someone had been recording their conversation. And by tomorrow morning, the whole world would know the billionaire secret. The trial that followed? It didn't just go viral. It became the most watched court case in modern history. Comment justice if you're ready for what's next, because what happens in that courtroom will wreck you. Don't miss it. Subscribe before the verdict drops. The recording leaked at 6 a.m. By 6:15, it was on Twitter. By 6:30, every news outlet in the country had it. By noon, the mansion was surrounded. News vans, protesters, cameras everywhere. Signs that read, "Justice for Maya," clashed with others screaming, "Billionaires buy babies." The internet exploded into war. Team Maya versus Team Preston. Think pieces. Hot takes. Thread after thread dissecting every word, every choice, every lie. Some called Preston a kidnapper hiding behind wealth. Others called Maya an opportunist who waited years to strike gold. Nobody agreed on anything except this. The truth was uglier than anyone wanted to admit. Inside the mansion, Maya sat on the floor of Theo's room, holding him while he played. He didn't understand why strangers were shouting outside. He just knew his mom was there, and that was enough. Preston stood at the window downstairs, watching his lawyers panic on speakerphone. "Sir, we need to settle this privately. A trial will destroy you." "Then let it," Preston said quietly. "Sir, she deserves her day in court. Set it up." He hung up before they could argue. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Standing room only. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but sketch artists worked fast, and live updates flooded every feed. Maya walked in wearing a simple dress. No jewelry, no makeup. She looked small next to the legal army Preston's team had assembled. But when she sat down and looked across the room at him, she didn't look small anymore. She looked unmovable. The judge entered. Everyone rose, and the battle began. Maya's lawyer was a young woman named Gabrielle Ross. Sharp, hungry, and angry. She didn't waste time. "Your Honor, this isn't a custody dispute. This is a cover-up." She held up documents. County General Hospital falsified death records. They told Miss Cole her son died, then sold that same child through a private network for $250,000. Gasps rippled through the room. And where did that baby end up? In the home of Preston Hale, whose late wife conveniently had a contact at that exact hospital. Preston's lawyer shot up. "Objection. Clara Hale is not on trial here." "No," Gabrielle snapped. "But the system that enabled this theft is." The judge banged his gavel. "Counselor, keep it focused." Gabrielle nodded, then turned to the jury. Maya Cole spent 5 years believing her child was dead. 5 years grieving a lie. And when she finally found him, she was mopping his floors. She let that sink in. "Tell me that's justice." Preston's attorney, a silver-haired man named Gerald Knox, stood slowly. He was calm, methodical, deadly. "Ladies and gentlemen, no one disputes that what happened to Miss Cole was a tragedy." He paused. "But let's be clear about what we're actually discussing here. Theo Hale has lived with Preston Hale since birth. He knows no other father. He has received world-class care, therapy, and love. He gestured toward Preston. This man has sacrificed everything for that boy. And now, 5 years later, Miss Cole appears, after forming a bond as a caregiver, and claims maternal rights. Gabrielle stood. She didn't claim anything. DNA doesn't lie. Knox smiled coldly. DNA tells us biology. It doesn't tell us family. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. He continued, Miss Cole is a stranger to this child in every way that matters. Should we uproot his entire life because of a hospital's mistake half a decade ago? He looked at the jury. Or do we protect the child's stability and let him stay in the only home he's ever known? When Maya was called to testify, the room went silent. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. Gabrielle approached gently. Miss Cole, can you describe the day you were told your son had died? Maya's hands trembled in her lap. I was alone. They came in around 4 a.m. 2 nurses and a doctor I'd never seen before. Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. They said he stopped breathing, but they tried to revive him, but couldn't. They said it was common with premature births. What did you do? I asked to see him. Silence. They said no. Policy. Something about infection risk. I didn't understand, but I was so tired, so broken. I just believed them. A tear slipped down her cheek. They handed me his blanket. Said it was all I could keep. Gabrielle's voice was soft. And when did you learn the truth? Maya looked directly at Preston. When the man who raised my son told me. When Preston was called, the energy shifted. He looked older than his 43 years. Tired. Hollow. Knox led him through the basics. Clara's infertility, the adoption process, the legal paperwork. Then Gabrielle stood for cross-examination. Mr. Hale, did you ever question where Theo came from? No. Why not? Preston hesitated. Because I trusted my wife. And I trusted the system. That trust cost Maya Cole 5 years with her son. I know. Gabrielle blinked. She hadn't expected that. You know. Preston nodded, his voice breaking. I know. And if I could go back and burn every dollar I have to fix it, I would. The courtroom went still. But I can't. So all I can do now is tell the truth and let this court decide what's right. He looked at Maya. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to do better. The judge called for closing arguments, but before either side could speak, he raised his hand. I'm going to say something off the record. Everyone froze. He looked at Maya, then at Preston, then at the sketch of Theo playing in the hallway, drawn by a courtroom artist. This case isn't about loss. It's about a child who deserves better than what any of us have given him. He leaned forward. Family isn't ownership. It's not biology alone, and it's not wealth. It's the courage to love someone even after the truth hurts. He paused. I'm ordering joint custody. Miss Cole will live in the Hale residence as Theo's legal mother. Mr. Hale will retain parental rights. Both will co-parent with the child's welfare as the only priority. His gavel came down. Court adjourned. Within minutes, that quote trended worldwide. Family is the courage to love, even after the truth hurts. It was stitched into TikToks, printed on shirts, debated endlessly. Some celebrated, others raged, but everyone had an opinion. Would you have forgiven if you were Maya? Drop your answer below, because this is where healing begins. And it's more beautiful than you think. 6 weeks after the trial, the mansion didn't feel like a mansion anymore. It felt like a home trying to remember how. Maya moved into the West Wing, not the servants' quarters, the actual West Wing. The one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the garden where Theo first laughed again. Preston didn't fight it, didn't negotiate. He just helped her unpack. The first breakfast together was awkward, painfully, suffocatingly awkward. Theo sat between them, stacking his cereal into small towers. Maya poured juice. Preston buttered toast. Neither spoke. The clinking of silverware was the only sound. Then Theo looked up at Maya and said, "Song." She froze. He pointed at her. "Song, please." Maya's throat tightened, but she hummed. That same tune from the record player. Theo smiled, rocked gently, and went back to his cereal. Preston stared at his plate, jaw working, because he realized something in that moment. He didn't know his own son's favorite song, but she did. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, rhythms formed. Maya woke Theo up with the curtains open and that same hum. Preston made breakfast while she got Theo dressed. They took turns reading to him at night. It wasn't perfect. Some mornings, Maya couldn't look at Preston without feeling the weight of stolen years. Some nights, Preston lay awake wondering if he even deserved to be called Dad. But they kept showing up. For Theo, it happened on a Sunday morning. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window like liquid gold. Theo was sitting at the table, coloring with crayons Maya had bought him. Preston poured orange juice. Maya hummed while scrambling eggs. And then Theo looked up, pointed at Maya, and said, clear as a bell, "Mom." Time stopped. Maya's spatula clattered to the floor. She turned slowly, eyes wide, hand covering her mouth. "What did you say, baby?" Theo pointed again, smiling. "Mom." She dropped to her knees and pulled him into her arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Preston stood frozen by the counter, juice carton still in his hand. Then his face crumpled. He set the carton down, covered his face with both hands, and wept. Not quiet tears. Loud, gasping, chest-heaving sobs. The kind that come from a man who's been holding everything in for years. The kind that break you open and put you back together at the same time. When Maya posted a photo later that week, just Theo's hand holding hers in the garden, the internet exploded again. But this time, it wasn't with rage. It was with hope. Comments poured in by the thousands. "I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what forgiveness looks like. My son is autistic. This gives me so much hope." One comment stood out. "I lost my daughter to the system. Seeing this makes me believe I might find her again." Maya read that 3 times. Then she replied, "Don't stop looking. Ever." That same week, Preston made an announcement. He stood in front of cameras outside Hale Industries headquarters, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I'm establishing the Maya Cole Foundation," he said, "dedicated to helping children with autism in underfunded communities and to reuniting families torn apart by systemic failures." Reporters shouted questions. He ignored them all except one. "Why now, Mr. Hale?" He looked directly into the camera. "Because love found me in my own house, and I almost missed it. I won't let that happen to another family." He walked away without taking more questions. But the clip went viral within hours. That night, Preston knocked on Maya's door. She opened it cautiously. "Everything okay?" He held out a small box. "I found this in Clara's things. I think she would have wanted you to have it." Maya opened it slowly. Inside was a silver bracelet, simple, delicate, engraved with a single word: hope. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Preston, you gave me that," he said quietly. "You gave us both that. I just wanted you to know. I see it now." She didn't hug him. They weren't there yet. But she nodded. And that was enough. 3 months later, Theo's 8th birthday was coming. And Maya had an idea that would bring everyone together. Staff, neighbors, even the judge who changed their lives. But what happened at that party? It wasn't just a celebration. It was proof that broken things can heal if you give them time, patience, and love. The next part is the ending you didn't know you needed. Comment hope if you're ready for the final scene, because it's going to restore your faith in second chances. Subscribe now. You come this far. Don't miss how this ends. Theo's 8th birthday fell on a Saturday. The garden was decorated with colorful streamers that twisted in the breeze. Not expensive party planners. Not coordinated themes. Just Maya, Preston, and a handful of staff who'd become family, hanging decorations by hand. Theo ran between them, wearing a cape, made from the same cleaning cloth Maya used the day she first calmed him down. He insisted on it. "My superhero cape," he called it. And nobody corrected him. The doorbell rang, and Maya opened it to find Judge Morris standing there with a wrapped gift. "Hope I'm not intruding," he said with a soft smile. "Never," Maya replied, stepping aside. Next came Gabrielle Ross, Maya's lawyer, holding a homemade cake. Then the elderly woman from the employment agency, clutching Theo's baby blanket, the one Maya thought she'd lost forever. "Found it in storage," the woman said, voice thick. "Thought it was time it came home." Maya hugged her so tight neither could breathe. Even some of the former staff showed up, the ones who testified during the trial, the ones who'd watched Theo grow. No cameras, no press, just people who'd been part of the story. When it was time to cut the cake, Theo stood on a chair, looked around at everyone, and did something no one expected. He spoke. Not just one word, a full sentence. "Thank you for coming to my party." The garden went silent. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Preston gripped the edge of the table to stay standing. Because Theo had barely spoken 10 words in his entire life. And now, surrounded by love, he was finding his voice. Judge Morris wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. Gabrielle Ross wasn't even pretending not to cry. And the elderly woman whispered, "That's the boy who was supposed to be dead." But he wasn't dead. He was alive. And he was loved. After cake, Preston stood and raised a glass of sparkling cider. Everyone quieted. "I'm not good at this," he started, voice unsteady. "Speeches, emotions, any of it." A few people laughed softly. "But I need to say something." He looked at Maya. 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My wife, my son's future, my ability to feel anything but anger. He swallowed hard. Then a woman walked into this house with worn-out shoes and a quiet strength I didn't recognize. Maya's eyes glistened. She didn't ask for anything, didn't demand recognition. She just loved my son when nobody else could reach him. His voice cracked, and it turned out she had every right to, because he was hers all along. The garden was so quiet you could hear the leaves rustling. I can't give back the years we stole from her. I can't undo the lies or the pain. He looked around at everyone. But I can stand here today and say this. Love doesn't care about money, titles, or who got there first. He turned fully to Maya now. It cares about showing up. And you showed up every single day, even when the world told you that you didn't matter. Tears streamed down Maya's face. "So here's to Maya Cole," Preston said, lifting his glass higher. "The woman who reminded us all what it means to be human." Everyone lifted their glasses. To Maya. Maya stood slowly, wiping her face. "I didn't prepare anything," she said, voice shaking. "I'm not good with words." "You don't need to be," Gabrielle called out softly. Maya smiled through tears. "For 5 years, I thought my son was gone. I thought I'd failed him, that the world took him because I wasn't strong enough to fight." She looked at Theo, who was tracing patterns on the tablecloth. But he wasn't gone. He was just waiting. Her voice broke. Waiting for me to find him. Waiting for all of us to stop being afraid and start being honest. She looked at Preston. "I won't lie and say I've forgiven everything. Some wounds take time." Preston nodded, tears in his eyes. "But I will say this," Maya continued. "That boy right there, he doesn't care about the past. He cares about who shows up, who stays, who loves him even when it's hard." She raised her glass. "So here's to second chances, and to the people brave enough to take them." As the sun began to set, Theo tugged on Maya's dress. "Mom." "Yes, baby." He pointed to Preston, then back to her. "Both stay." Maya's heart shattered and mended in the same breath. She knelt down and cupped his face. "Yes, baby. We both stay." Theo smiled, the kind of smile that reaches all the way to the soul, and wrapped his arms around her neck. Preston joined them, kneeling on the grass, and wrapped his arms around them both. For the first time in 8 years, they felt like a family. Not perfect, not simple, but real. The cameras would fade here, the sunlight filtering through the trees, the sound of Theo laughing, the faint hum of that old record player tune drifting from the house. Because some stories don't end with perfect resolutions. They end with people choosing to stay, choosing to fight, choosing to love even when it costs everything. Sometimes the richest hearts aren't the ones with money. They're the ones brave enough to forgive. Sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest miracles. And sometimes the person you think you're saving, they're the one who saves you. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. If you've ever felt invisible but kept showing up anyway, comment, "I see you" below. And if you believe love is stronger than lies, stronger than systems, stronger than anything this world throws at us, subscribe, because the next story will remind you what it means to be human. And right now, we all need that reminder.